Hey guys, Bruce Hill here with Probate Mastery, probatemastery.com. As a longtime real estate agent, real estate investor, and a real estate coach, I'm very frequently asked where an agent should find motivated seller leads. So inside of this video over the next couple of minutes is a list of my 7 favorite lead types that an agent can use to find motivated, ready to sell seller leads. Let's jump on in. Welcome to the Estate Professionals Mastermind Podcast, built for real estate professionals that want to work less, earn more, and make an impact in their community. For information on how you can become part of the Estate Professionals community, visit probatemastery.com. Hey, before we dive into the lead list that we're talking about today, let me take a brief moment and identify for you what a motivated seller actually is. So I've been sold on lists and leads before that had the description of motivated seller attached to those leads. And what I typically found was that they were no more than low intent internet or what's the value of my home opt-ins. So what we're going to do is run each one of our 7 lead types that we talk about today through 4 filters to determine how motivated they are. So number 1, they have a home that needs to sell. Not wants to sell, but needs to sell. Number 2, the owner either has absolutely no emotional attachment to the property, or if they do have an emotional attachment, it's going to be superseded by an emotion that minimizes the attachment to the property that we're calling on. The third filter is these sellers are need to sell sellers, and they're unlikely to be married to the price of the property or the commission that they're willing to pay a professional to sell the house. And the last filter that all these leads match is they're owners who are burdened by some kind of process that's causing them to be overwhelmed somewhere. When that happens, they're often looking to make quick decisions so that they can get that burden off of their shoulders. So with that understanding and a kind of an overview of what filters we're looking at, let's take a look at the 7 different lead types that I believe all fit this criteria and are therefore the most motivated sellers that you can market to and prospect. So our very first lead type is a late mortgage or a pre-foreclosure lead. And depending on how you source these, my favorite sources are below in the comments. These could be anywhere from like 1 to maybe 3 months late on a mortgage, but not necessarily on any sort of lis pendens list, which is essentially after the foreclosure is filed, it starts through typically a court process. They could be months behind, and sometimes they are moving through a foreclosure process. I like really both types of leads, moving through foreclosure or potentially just a month or 2 late. When we look at the filter that we have set up, these homes definitely need to sell. The seller's emotional attachment to the home is present, but it's generally superseded by kind of another emotion that would give them more motivation to sell without the emotional connection. They're definitely in financial stress. They're not stuck to any price. And sometimes they're even upside down on the property, so they're not looking for any financial gain out of it. So these leads also match our last filter because they're burdened by some sort of process that they're needing immediate relief from, such as a late mortgage payment, or they're so far behind that they're just not going to catch up. So moving on to our second type of motivated seller lead, we're going to find homeowners that are moving through a separation or a divorce. Divorcing sellers need to sell a home that they own. Actually, it's more than 70% of the time that divorcing sellers have a home that they own that needs to sell. That's a really big number and probably the highest of any of these lead types, which makes them an extra motivated seller. So the criteria are no emotional attachment or minimal emotional attachment, at least one that supersedes the need for the property to sell. In this case, divorcing couples do often have emotions, but those emotions dictate an escape or a disconnection, a reset in the real estate and in really life. Divorce does from time to time have sticking points on the property value that they need, but for the most part, remember they do go back to that need to escape. So it kind of removes some of that price emotion, especially if you're good at communicating, negotiating, and playing mediator between the two parties. So the last filter that, remember, we look at is that they are burdened by some kind of a process that a lot of times they need a quick solution from. Just remove something from their plate. And many times the house and the real estate, mortgage, and connection is one of those big things. These folks need to get the house behind them so that they can get a fresh start. So as you can see, divorce leads can be a very significant lead source if you're an agent that wants to work with sellers who are motivated to sell and sell quickly without the price resistance that you get from like a traditional real estate seller. So our third type of lead just so happens to be my specialty with probatemastery.com, and these are inherited real estate leads, typically going through some kind of probate or estate administration process. And I've personally made this type of seller my primary niche for now 10 years. I've worked with over 300 estates to help sell real estate that's been inherited. I love these leads because they need help. They're very frequently overwhelmed by kind of a legal process. And because of that, they automatically meet that fourth criteria they have. They need to get things off of their plate, most of the time real estate. These owners meet our other filters because they're typically sitting on real estate that's vacant and needs to sell. The homes are many times part of a larger inheritance, so the family doesn't necessarily always need the cash or the money. They're willing to negotiate or be reasonable on price and commission. So last, most of the time they have a very low emotional attachment to the home because they frequently haven't personally lived in the home. I have agents in dozens of markets, hundreds around the country that are listing or buying, in many cases, 5 or more properties every single month. So obviously, I'm going to put my favorite lead sources in this video description below, but I also want to say that if you're looking for an advanced training on probate and estate, the estate topic, jump over to www.probatemastery.com and check out our training and the certification course if you're interested in working inherited leads that are moving through some sort of probate or an estate administration process. So fourth is going to be our tired landlords. These are motivated sellers that in some markets can be a little bit saturated, especially in the investor space. Now, just because it's saturated, my team personally still does and has called on these leads of tired landlords. It just takes a stronger call to action than some of the other lead types. If you're going to make this a big niche in your business, make sure that your call to action and unique selling proposition is really good. So let's jump into the tired landlord leads. These are frequently investors who've been landlords, oftentimes for 5 to 15 years, and they are probably wanting to get out of the property management business or out of a property that they're tired of maintaining. If you hit these folks around the 8 to 12 year mark, they might also be exiting properties just because they've maxed out the depreciation value of the house for taxes. So a lot of times these owners are really, really good sources for finding motivated, unemotionally attached sellers that want to sell. They understand the business of real estate, so they're very pragmatic in their decision making, and the emotions that we deal with owner-occupied properties are not normally there. A lot of times they might be a former owner of the property and they've moved on, so frequently they never intended to get into the property management business. They just ended up there. And sometimes they're burdened by it, they're stressed out, they're just sick of dealing with the property, and they're ready to move on. So even if they lived in the home and there's a few more pricing emotions there, they typically still have the ability to make a strong, pragmatic business decision on pricing and commissions and things like that. So I highly encourage you guys to take a look at the tired landlords as one of the lead sources that you go after if you're looking for motivated seller leads. So moving to my fifth type of lead that I've worked over my career are the out-of-state or and vacant property owners. So out-of-state and vacant, two filters together. Oftentimes, these folks have an empty rental or a vacation home, or potentially relocated out of a house that they used to live in, but they're in a different state. So I've very frequently had a ton of success with this type of seller. Most of the time, they don't have an urgent financial need, but they still meet our four filters that we're talking about, those four criteria. So obviously, they are those who are just in between renters or sitting on maybe a vacation house that they want or they own. But many of these people just have too much going on in their life to have dealt with that vacant piece of real estate. So it's not that they don't want to sell, it's just that they've had a lot going on and maybe they just haven't gotten around to dealing with the vacant property, especially if it's one that needs to sell. So I want you guys to consider out-of-state vacant property owners. Give them a call, market to them. A high percentage of them will sell if the right call to action is put in front of them. Before we jump into the fifth type of motivated seller lead that I like to work, I want to take a minute to emphasize the importance of, if you're in real estate and you want to get business, the importance of having a niche or a specialty. I have and will continue to work every single one of the lead types that I'm mentioning in this video. I've gotten listings from all of them. I believe in all of them. However, if you're new to prospecting and marketing for motivated sellers, I believe that it's completely imperative, absolutely imperative, that you pick one lead type at a time. Perfect that lead type. Build out your cold marketing systems. So build those out. Build out your content and online capture for these leads. And then build out a warm marketing and a follow-up plan for those leads as well. At that point, you want to role play and slowly perfect your conversation and prospecting dialogue and sales approach. Once you've done all these things and you're done and you have a steady flow of listings coming in the door and closings coming in the door, then and only then add another lead source. So pick one at a time. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule of picking one at a time, but you need to have the money to spend on team members like ISAs, listing agents, things like that, for that exception to be true in your life. So if you're a solo agent and you just want new seller leads now, pick one. And I'm going to remind you of the niche that I think personally is best to start with. I believe that niche to start with is probate or the inherited property niche. In this niche, for those of you that are getting in for the very first time, if you're interested in learning more about how you can start to master the art of finding motivated sellers and listings out of an estate or a probate or inherited property niche, I want to invite you to check out my training over on probatemastery.com. At the top of probatemastery.com website, you're going to see a free class that I host several times a month. It's called Probate Foundations. You can either start by signing up for and taking that free class. It's live. Or if you want to jump into the probate and the estate niche with both feet and be one of the hundreds of members in our community that I have that are closing multiple listings every month in the probate niche. Multiple. I have people closing 20 a month. You might want to just jump into the Probate Mastery certification course. Now that I've interrupted, let's jump into our fifth type of motivated seller lead. So our next and sixth type of motivated seller that I like to work with are the expired listings. So this is probably one that you weren't expecting. I've been kind of unique with these. This is probably the most saturated of all the motivated seller leads that are out there, but it's still one that I continue to build and built a lot of my early business around. There's still a ton of opportunity in expireds, even though it can be saturated in some markets. Now, because the niche is saturated with agents coming in and out constantly and prospecting these lists, I put a little twist on the way I work with expired sellers. I like to let the noise really die down for a little bit before I start pursuing marketing and prospecting. So I recognize that in the first week or two of an expired listing, if they have not already listed, this motivated seller is going to get a lot of calls and letters in the first couple of weeks. I also know that not being on the phone in the first couple of days really is probably going to cause you to lose a shot with those that are extremely motivated to sell. So if you want extremely motivated to sell, call the day that they expire. But personally, I let those sellers go. I don't want to deal with the noise of all the other competitors. I prefer to catch the seller that was motivated but not desperate. I like to call and market to expired sellers who haven't been back on the market for 1 month, 6 months, and 1 year. These were real estate sellers who might show a little bit less urgency, but the competition is practically zero at the 1 month mark, the 6 month mark, and the 1 year mark. These sellers may have lacked the motivation to change their mind on selling in the beginning, but in many cases, they were just disillusioned from the listing process and they just wanted to take a break, even though they still want to and need to sell. So given the right unique selling proposition, you can land some absolutely unbelievable, really good listings. Some of my best listings have been expired for a month or 6 months or a few months in a lot of cases. So I want you to consider, in addition to maybe calling on the folks that have expired now, today, yesterday, consider going after, through prospecting and marketing, the sellers that expired a month ago, and then when they hit the 6 month mark, they still haven't been listed. Consider calling them again. Maybe they've changed their mind, but maybe they haven't. Maybe they just got tired of it and they want to go back on. And then I'd call again in a year, because if they wanted to sell before, they're likely still going to have some kind of motivation to sell. And maybe the market's caught up to the price that they need. That's a little bonus if you wait for 6 months or a year. The seventh and last motivated seller lead source that I personally like to work are the eviction records. These records are very often tired landlords. We talked about them earlier, but they're landlords that have been through something traumatic and are probably going through an overwhelming process. They likely haven't been paid on the house that they own and they're paying a mortgage on for many months, and they're ready to cut their losses. In a lot of cases, not only has the tenant put the owner in a bad financial situation, most of the time the tenant hasn't taken very good care of the house, and in some cases they've trashed it. So I've worked with a lot of these motivated sellers that are on the eviction list, and there's almost never price or commission resistance. They typically price the property according to the market, and they don't make that emotional decision because typically they've never lived in the home. It was just a business for them. It was just a business decision for them when they sell. If you want more listings that are motivated to sell, I'm going to ask you to consider looking at eviction records and finding the owners of those properties that are evicting tenants that haven't been paid and pursuing them with your prospecting and marketing. Folks, if this information has been valuable to you, I want to ask you to do me two things. So, number one, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to our YouTube channel where we talk about earning more, working less, hopefully you want that, and doing more good inside of your community. Those are the three things that I want you guys to know that we focus on. We do that through the probate and estate channels, the platform over in our YouTube community. We try to pair an empathetic approach with our pursuit of working this type of business. The second thing that I'm going to ask you to do is click below and join our Probate Mastery community. It's just going to be probatemastery.com. You can do that by taking our Probate Mastery certification course or joining any of our completely free weekly workshops or coaching sessions. It's my mission to equip agents and investors in our community to grow their business and systems with a focus on a niche, and that niche is the probate and the estate niche. I really appreciate you guys watching. Can't wait to be a part of your further success and growth as an agent.